Penda, Kujijilishu Kwako, Jinalenguni, Almas, Jamil, Sami. Since there are probably not many Swahili speakers out here, let me say that please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Almas, Jamil, Sami, and I'm very glad to be here. Some of the work I do is in prisons, detention centers, some of the young brothers who are really struggling with life, trying to find a footing. And really, the only difference between me and them, and I'm going to segue into this, is that I had a wonderful mother and a father, and my mother, please stand my mother. My mother happens to be here today, Georgiana. She didn't know I was going to do that. So I'm sure I'll hear about that later on. But the only difference really is the grace of God. I mean, I knew what it felt like to wake up in the morning and feel and smell the aroma of breakfast cooking in the morning. I knew what it's like to come home from church or come home from basketball and football and track practice, and there's a meal on the table. And back in those days, everybody raised everybody. I knew Miss Clarice. I knew Miss Crenshaw. You know, you often hear black folk particularly talk about in the old days where you could get whooped by anybody on the street. And let's be clear, it wasn't a bunch of mad black folk whipping children. Because I knew what Miss Crenshaw's sweet potato pie tastes like. See, she could straight me out, but she also knew, and I also knew, that if I needed a meal, if I was hungry, if there was something going on with me that was troubling me, there was always somebody somewhere that I could go to, and that, my brothers and sisters, is what's missing in today's society. We can complain about the young people all we want, but the truth of the matter is there aren't many of them who get to stand in a circle and have the adults around them praise them as we did here today. That is simply what is missing in our society today. And part of the message today is about my first book, The Unshackled Mind. But the other part is how we can implement some of the things that I do on a local level, on a smaller level, and it really doesn't take that much to get involved with some of the roughest characters. I happen to believe that when the Titanic sank, and I don't know, I'm not a scientist and I wasn't there, but I think it probably started on the bottom. I think the hole was probably in the bottom. I think the people on the bottom knew that it was sinking long before the people on the promenade deck. And here we are today, sipping on the promenade deck, not understanding fully what's going on the bottom of our society. I spend time there, probably some of you, and those of you who are educators and teachers, you know full well what I'm talking about. There are some things that we need to do as Americans. There are some things that we need to do as adults to change the way we view the world, the way we live in this world, the way we connect ourselves to this world, starting at home. One of the things I tell particularly black audiences, and I'm going to tell you the same thing, is that when you see young people walking the streets, I don't care what color they are, greet them. Most of them don't get greeted at home. I have an aunt in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Every Thanksgiving, she puts out a table. Doesn't matter how cold it is. She puts out a table in her front yard and she feeds the whole neighborhood. Gang members, gang bangers, people from all stripes show up and they eat. And the sad thing is, that is the one and only meal they get. Mama's on crack, daddy's in jail. We can all do such a thing. If we can create a way to give this kind of energy to the world on a much greater level, we can all get there together. I promise you we can get there together. I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation. To me, meditation is something that I had to give up a long time ago. I was a doper in the 70s. I mean, you know, I'm going to say this in front of my mama too. I was a doper. I loved to get high. I didn't know at the time that I was stuck in a beta world I didn't like, and I'm just trying to find my way to alpha. I didn't understand that concept. I didn't understand the concept of how we change our world based on the state of mind we're in, how we engage the world based upon the state of mind that we're in. Finally, I had to give up dope. I didn't want to go to jail. I almost went to jail a couple of times behind that mess. I sold dope for a while, not long, because I was my own best customer. But more than that, there was a day that I was supposed to go do a pickup. You know, we'd go out and I'd buy a couple of pounds of dope and sell it to the university over the weekend, make good money. I could make as much money as most people were making in a month on a weekend. So that's very enticing to young brothers, especially young brothers like myself who wasn't that good at reading and writing. So I had to learn how to change the way I live my life. But I didn't want to give up getting high. So to me, getting in a position of mind to where I relax and I meditate is nothing more than getting high. I have a breathing exercise that I learned from Ra'un Neframin. He wrote a book called Volumes 1 and Volumes 2 called The Medinatir, The Words of God, Ancient African Principles of Study, of Religiosity, of Spirituality. And in this, he teaches how to breathe. And he focuses primarily on belly breathing. I know most of us breathe, and we take in a deep breath and we try to, and that's cool. But with the belly breathing, we come from the base. We bring air all the way in and we blow up. It's not pretty. But we blow up just like we did when we were babies. You'll watch a baby in a crib. This is their breathing. And we go right back home. If you learn this technique and you decide that you want it to get high, like I like to get high, this will give you the best high on earth. I mean a natural high. No stimulants. You know, the first thing we learned to do on earth was to breathe. The last thing we're going to do is breathe. So that tells you how important breathing is. We can find just about everything we need in our breathing. So what happens is the reason we end up breathing through our chest is because life shocks us. We get beat, we get stomped, we get crucified, dead and buried, and we stop breathing and we start breathing shallowly. This breathing is designed to go all the way down, push that belly out. Do this by yourself. Don't do it, you know. And then you use your stomach to push it back in. When I do this, and I do it rhythmically, there are words of power. Some say that the first thing God did on earth was to create sound. Sound is very important. So the word I use that I repeat in my mind is ang. Doesn't mean anything. It's just a reverberatory effect, and it changes the environment around me, and inside of me as well as around me. Ang, asar. Asar is a word that means God, an ancient word for God. Ang, asar, hung. Hung is another word that doesn't mean anything, but it is a peaceful, stabilizing rhythm or vibratory effect that it has. So when I sit, I don't stand, I sit, I keep my feet flat, firmly planted on the ground, and I breathe in, ang, and I breathe out on asur, the sir of asur. Asur, and then I hold it on hum for quite a while. At first it's going to feel like you're drowning and you're losing breath. It's a very uncomfortable feeling at first, but if you fight it and work with it, don't worry about thinking, don't worry about focusing on one thing, just worry about your breathing. And that's the breathing. Ang, asar, hum. Ang, asar, hum. You do that for 20 minutes. And it will change your life. If you like to get high. If you don't like to get high, don't do it. And at the end of this, we're gonna do it together. If I don't run out of time, I'll have to keep watching the time, and then we'll all do it together. But I wanted to kind of give you a background of where I'm coming from in terms of how I now manage my life. There was a time when I had just about every vice known to humankind. I smoked cigarettes, I drank, I smoked dope, you name it, I just about did it. And now I'm a 50-year-old man who is a vegetarian. I watch very carefully what I put in my body. I watch very carefully how I live my life. And I watch very carefully the energy that I bring into my world, into my mind, into my soul. And the hardest thing to do was to regulate the energy that I give people. Because basically, and you all know this, you literally get what you give. So you have to be very careful how what you say and how you live your life. One of the things I had to learn with the Unshackled Mind, particularly being an African American, listen folks, the reason this is called the Unshackled Mind, this book is called the Unshackled Mind, is because we, all of us, particularly those of us who are African Americans, are still suffering from the effects of slavery. Now when I tell people that, they go, well, that was so long ago, that was 1865. So wait a minute, think about this, 260 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow. Things really did not change for us until the death of Martin Luther King. That's less than 40 years ago. So that's like taking a serious beat down for over 300 years and expecting to get it cleared up in 40 years. The message to black people is that we're going to have to figure out a way to help ourselves, to heal ourselves from the inside out. It's an inside job, something that we're going to have to learn how to do. I used to read, back when I was trying to come back, I used to read a lot of positive self-help motivation books. I read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and so on and so forth, Jim Rohn, and many of the greats. And I constantly read it. I read it all the time. But then there was a problem I had with it, is that there was nothing in those books that related to me nor my experiences as a black male in America. So I came up with the Unshackled Mind, an Afrocentric approach to self-help. And basically it's a combination of Malcolm X and Dr. King. And I'm of the opinion that as a people, if we ever get it together, we will be a combination of Malcolm X and Dr. King, particularly older Malcolm X and older Dr. King. You know, they both evolved. I don't know if you know much about their history, but they both evolved as human beings and became very much different from what they were early on in life. So this book, The Unshackled Mind, came about one night. Like my wife and I, we've been through many, many trials and tribulations. This book came about one night. We didn't have running water. We were about to get evicted. I had no cartilages on either knee, and I had a back that I could not hardly move. My wife was pregnant with our 20-year-old daughter at the time. She's now 20, doing quite well. But at the time, we were in this house not knowing what was going to happen, wondering what was going to take place from then on. And here we are, by candlelight, because there was no electricity, no running water, and here we are by candlelight. One of the things I noticed, and if you pay attention to life, you know, God will always give you something, a little piece of what can be, a little snippet of what could be if we just paid attention. And I noticed something. I noticed that even though my children had nothing, they were the ones who were the counselors for all the other kids on the block. Everybody had all the cars and all the toys and all the video games and all of them, but they were coming to my kids, asking my kids for advice. They were crying on the shoulders of my two children at the time. And I said, you know, Kai, my wife is Kai, and I said, you know, we've managed to do something here. We have nothing. People are telling the world that if you're poverty-ridden, then you can't function. But somehow we're functioning. Our kids are doing well. So well, in fact, that they're helping other people. In this deplorable state of conditioning that we're supposedly living in, they are upstanding, outstanding, doing their thing. So what do you say? And I will never forget this. They're flickering in the dead of night, 1 o'clock in the morning. My wife, pregnant, no lights, no electricity, no running water. Eviction just days away. And I tell her, I'm going to write a book. I will never forget the look in her eye, that piercing stare that went clear through to the back of my head. And I said, no, baby, wait just a minute. Look at us. We are functioning. We don't have what the world says we need to have. But somehow, here in America, in the belly of the beast, that financial beast that says that you must have this, and you got to have that, in order you've got to have this title, and you've got to have that job, and you've got to have that car. We're living in this world with nothing, yet our children are happier than the kids they're dealing with. That should be in a book somewhere. How are we doing that? What are we doing to make that happen? Hence the unshackled mind. Because all the information that I was learning from positive self-help and so on and whatnot and so forth, we pass that on to our kids. You are what you think. You know, watch what you say. Breathe in good energy, breathe out negative energy. It works, folks. It works. One of the messages we give poor people now, particularly poor African Americans when I go talk to them, is that it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you learn to function within yourself, things will change. It really doesn't matter how much money you have. That's a hard message to get across. But I'm not telling you what I read, I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you about my experiences. And they get that. They understand that after a while. The Dalits in India, supposedly the poorest people on earth. I'm having a conversation with Ranoko Rashidi, a world-renowned historian. And he was telling me that the Dalits in India are known as the untouchables. The poorest people on earth, arguably, leave minus the 4 and what's going on now, but this was 10 years ago. This guy told me that if you dropped your wallet, if you lost something, these people, supposedly the poorest people on earth, the most decrepit people on earth, would chase you down to give you your wallet to you.
It happened to me. I was surrounded by a bunch of very poor Indians, and my purse fell out, and all of my money fell out, and they were living in huts and newspapers, and they reached out and handed me back my money.
See?
And I was surrounded by everybody because I was unusual.
That is powerful. That is powerful. What is the difference between them and us? I submit to you that it's merely expectations. In this country, we teach that you've got to be such and such. You've got to have such and such in order to find peacefulness and wholeness and happiness. Over there, they don't teach that. So the curse of this great country is that we have everything. The asset becomes our liability when we don't know how to feed properly and nourish properly. And as a result, we have what we have today in the school systems. I work with teachers. I'm turned on by teachers. I'm really turned on. If there are any teachers in the audience here, I'm telling you right now, I'm turned on by you. Because I homeschool my children, 2 of them, because I did not believe in the system. I did not believe in the system, and I hated teachers. I really did. I despised teachers until I went and volunteered in a school. Volunteered in a school, and I found out what they go through. So I dedicate most of my life now to nurturing and helping and dealing with schools. Show me a failing school, and I'll show you a neighborhood that's twice as bad. Show me a failing student, and I'll show you parents at home who are not connected, disconnected. Mama on crack, daddy in jail. And we send them to school and expect the teachers to fix this thing. And then we come up with laws and rules and regulations that's designed to undermine the very souls of the people that we have to depend on, cornerstones of our society. So yes, we work now with just about everybody, including teachers. But let me get to the Unshackled Mind, because this is my first book, and the reason I liked it so much, one of the things I like about this book, aside from the fact of how it came about, is that I had no money at the time. I wrote the book, I put the manuscript together, and I just sent it out to everybody I could, and I finally got a publisher that says, we'll publish your book. And then I got to read in the fine print and found out that the book would no longer belong to me, and I said, the heck with that, I'm going to publish it myself. Other than I bought another one of those stairs from my wife. But I'm glad I did. I'd rather have complete ownership than money. I'd rather have ownership of my future. One of the things that I thought to myself, I'm going to read a few excerpts here of the Unshackled Mind, is that there in the dark, in that deplorable state of consciousness, of mind, this is the thought that I had. And I wrote it down and I put it in the book. It's the first poem in the book. If I could just touch the other side, the splendor of courage, the satisfaction of wholeness, if I could only touch that magic that brings together my inner contemplations with my outer realities, if I could touch today, the eternal now, my God, if I could only touch myself, I could touch all of humankind. For whatever reason, blessed was I to be in the worst, most deplorable state that I had ever been in. Here we are, the ancestors, the creators, giving me, passing on to me the notion to help others. It helped me take my mind off of my own frustrations and own problems. Show me a depressed person, and I'll show you a person that is self-absorbed. Show me a person that can't get it together. I know this because this is where I used to live. Show me a person that can't get it together. I'll show you a person that's having a hard time looking into the mirror. And the reason they have a hard time looking in that mirror is because they don't plug in to the world around them in a meaningful, most powerful way. And then finally, we have to learn to stand alone as a people. The courage to be me. God grant me not gold, nor glamour, nor the pretty, but watch over me as I assemble the courage to think the right thoughts, courage to rest upon my convictions only, courage to overpower my fears, courage to be stronger than my weaknesses, courage to rise after a fall, courage to stand alone for the sake of righteousness, courage to simply do the right thing, and surely the courage to be me, and I'll do the rest in the service of you and yours. If I live by that, if I remember that, no matter what happens to me, no matter what arrows are flung my way, no matter what stones I must pick up around me at my feet, if I remember to have the courage in the morning, at night, every night, which is why I read that prayer every night and every morning, and I meditate for 20 minutes a day, got to get high, and I walk into my world, and I can't wait to get there, and I lay my head down at night to sleep, and I sleep peacefully. So let me real quickly show you how to meditate. We got about a minute here. Let's get high. I'm going to do the ugly part, so you're sitting down, nobody will see. Take a deep breath. Try to imagine that your stomach is a balloon, and as you blow air into a balloon, it blows up. As you bring air into your nose, it blows up your stomach. And we're going to press that air right out, all through the nose, in the nose, out of the nose. Hold it. Take a deep breath. Release. Hold it. That pause is important. Take a deep breath. Don't try to take all the air in. Be cool. And let it out. Let that air be cool and calm and collected. Now let's add one more component. As you breathe in, I want you to think about things that are peaceful, things that are just. And I want you to see yourself doing, living, acting out your life in the meaningful way that you were meant to do so. Because residing in you, residing in all of us, is that energy that is God. This exercise is about going home to God, and therein lies the getting high element. Before the world told you this, that, and the other. This is going to take some practice to get your stomach to operate right. It took me a long time to get this, because we're so used to chest breathing. But just use the balloon and hold. Use the balloon idea, the picture in your mind, and you can see that belly filling up. Take a deep breath and release. Think only of what is good. And as you release, I want you to release positive energy into the world. Take in positive and give the world the best of you. Take in positive, powerful energy and give the world powerful, positive energy, the best of you. In closing, let me say this to you. These times in America, we are at the crossroads. All we have to do is recognize that we are at the crossroads. If we all, as one, recognize that something needs to be done and decide, each and every one of us, to do one little thing, if nothing else but speak to a young man that you see passing the street, a young lady that you see passing the street, if nothing else than to wave at somebody as you drive by in the car. I'm telling you, that kind of energy works. It's necessary. We have to have it. It is a drug that we have to have. So, you get high, and let's give the world the same thing you got. Let's all get high together. Thank you for listening.